The Church of Saint Mary Magdalene in Vezelay is the largest Romanesque church in France and only 10 years shorter than the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. Has a claim to guard the relics of Saint Mary Magdalene. Vezelay was a major medieval pilgrimage destination. Norman invasions destroyed the original church, which was then restored under Abbot Geoffrey in the early 11th century. Construction in the present basilica began in 1096 under Abbot Artaud to properly honor the sacred relics. Soon after the founding of the original basilica, Artaud demanded money from the townspeople for the reconstruction of the church, and the monks refused to grant political independence to the citizens. This resulted in a civil disobedience in 1120, in which the abbey was burned and the abbot murdered. Work on the basilica's Romanesque nave was underway from the 1120 to its dedication in 1132. The narthex was built around 1140 to 1150. The original choir was destroyed by fire in 1165 and rebuilt in Gothic style. The prestige of the abbey began to diminish in 1280 when the Dominicans of Saint Maximin in Provence claimed that the true body of Saint Mary Magdalene had been discovered in their church. During the 16th century wars of religion, Vezelay was thoroughly sacked by French Protestants. The Protestant masters of Vezelay converted the Madeleine into storehouse and burned the relics. During the French Revolution, the ancient monastery buildings were destroyed and sold at public sale. Only the basilica, cloister, and dormitory escaped destruction. The archbishop determined to restore the pilgrimage of Saint Mary Magdalene at Vezelay, and so brought the relic of Saint, which Martin IV had given to the chapter of Sens in 1281. The basilica itself was restored by Leduc in 1840, the same restorer who fixed up the Cathedral of Paris Notre Dame. Before the arrival of Violet Leduc, the structure was unstable and evidenced successive alterations made on both the exterior and interior. The Romanesque facade had been partly rebuilt in Gothic style, the towers altered later. The Romanesque sculpture extensively damaged. The nave had been likewise partially reconstructed in Gothic style, and the walls had deteriorated severely. After its restoration, the cathedral was stable, its decorative sculpture was everywhere, and better of stylistic clarity. The interior is impressive and memorable for its long nave with unusual polychrome arches, extending to a light-filled choir. Vezelay was one of Europe's most frequently visited pilgrimage sites, as well as a gathering point for pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela. It is notable for its size. The narthex is an impressive 1,200 square kilometer, which is 4,000 square feet, and the length of nave nearly rivals the Notre Dame in Paris. The West Front, a combination of Romanesque, Gothic, and 19th century work. Originally built around 1150 in the Romanesque style, it was given a Gothic central gable, which is the triangular top section of a side wall on a building with pitched roof that fills the space beneath where the roof slopes meet. Much of this was heavily restored in 1840 by Violet Leduc. He added a Romanesque-style tympanum of the Last Judgment to the central portal. The basilica is also famous for its remarkable Romanesque sculptures that adorn the tympanum's semicircular arch over the door. The spacious narthex contains 3 richly sculpted portals dating from about 1115. The central portal in the narthex with the splendid tympanum depicting Pentecost or the mission of the apostles, or the preaching the good news that Christ commanded at Pentecost. In the center is the Christ, inside a mandorla. Bolts of light shoots out from the Christ's hand to the apostle's head. Saint Peter, recognizable by his keys, sit closest to the right side of Christ. John the Baptist occupies the tympanum. Peter and Paul have an animated conversation on the right side of the portal. Latin inscription at the base of the sculpture of Saint John the Baptist on the jamal of the central narthex portal. The inner archivolt and the lintel below are populated with the peoples of the world, who will hear the message of Christ. Figures bringing offerings depicts the people of the world, a scene of sacrifice. Animated figures on the left side of the inner archivolt of the central tympanum, believed to represent the Cappadocians, medieval depiction of the Ethiopians, with large and oddly shaped noses. On the left, a doctor and a terribly disfigured sick man represents the Arabs. On the right, the mythical dog-headed folks. Two figures on the inner archivolt represent a barbarian on the left and a Byzantine on the right carrying a stick of Greek fire. Figures on the bottom right represent the Armenians. The special shoes are notable. Below are members of the legendary race of people with giant ears, who medieval legend said could use their ears to fly or wrap around themselves like a blanket. The outer archivolt consists of medallions with zodiacs and labors of the month, symbolizing the timelessness of the message. Starting at January, every activity depicted on the archivolt represents every month. Illustration of the activity shown shows the timelessness of people. Tympanum over the south door in the narthex, illustrating the birth of Christ and scenes related to the birth of Christ. The lower lintel depicts Annunciation, Visitation, Announcement to the shepherds, and the Nativity. Above is the Adoration of the Magi. The archivolts are filled with beautiful sculptures of flowers and wine. The north left tympanum in the narthex depicting the post-resurrection appearances and ascension of Christ. The upper part of the north left tympanum in the narthex depicting the ascension of Christ, and the bottom part of the tympanum depicting two disciples' journey to Emmaus and the supper at Emmaus with the Christ. Dating primarily from the early 12th century, the Basilica of St. Mary Magdalene has a Romanesque nave and a Gothic choir, both full of light. The nave, constructed during 1120 to 1132, is one of the oldest parts of the church. Its architecture is exceptionally attractive, with more light than most Romanesque interiors and a visual rhythm created by the columns on the piers and the striped arches of the vault. The measurements of the church were carefully chosen to create a spectacular effect in the nave twice a year. At midday on the summer solstice, 9 pools of sunlight fall upon the exact center of the nave, forming a path of light leading to the altar. The Gothic choir was rebuilt during 1170 to 1210. It is very similar to the one in nearby Cathedral of Sens. It is an important example of the early adoption of the Gothic style in Burgundy. It has few decorations and no stained glass windows, relying entirely on its graceful lines and uses of light for its beauty. The Basilica is also famous for its historiated capitals. The vast majority of the biblical capitals illustrate the Old Testament, with John the Baptist and the story of Lazarus and Dives being the only New Testament themes represented. But the most famous capital at Vezelay combines the two, known as the Mystic Mill. It shows Moses grinding grain, symbolizing the Old Testament, into flour, which symbolizes the New Testament, which Paul solemnly collects in a sack. The ancient crypt. The Basilica's Carolingian crypt has reliquaries holding a small relics of Saint Mary Magdalene. The original relics were burned by French Calvinists during the 6th century Wars of Religion. The preserved relics were given in 1876 by the Archbishop of Sens. The relics were originally a gift from Pope Martin IV to the Diocese of Sens in 1281. These are not the original relics that brought thousands of medieval pilgrims to Vezelay. Those were burned by Calvinists during the 6th century Wars of Religion. The present relics were given in 1876 by the Archbishop of Sens, are housed in a 19th century reliquary. The relics were originally a gift from Pope Martin IV to the Diocese of Sens in 1281. The cloisters. It is an invention of the late 1800s restorer Violet Leduc.